Alright, this is the second half of the casting workshop on the 26th of January 2024. Fiendfar and Honeybear will be up for this couple of blocks. Fiendfar said that speaking big words and game knowledge are their strengths. Weaknesses are taking too long on points, interrupting the player play, and talking over the player play. LOL. Lamau, probably other things like that. From Honeybear, talking and being always eager to speak are their strengths. Weaknesses are getting too hyped for random things, which shouldn't be, probably shouldn't be hyper for, I'm assuming. Not having the greatest analysis of what the player is thinking in that moment. So, is there stuff which you would like for the people here to feedback on specifically? Like, just the stuff you've written down of weaknesses, or is there anything else?
For me, it's just overall general. I don't think I've been critiqued ever in my casting. I've been doing this for quite a few years now, so I've never really gotten true feedback. That's been like in an atmosphere like this. So just anything, I'm really looking forward to hearing what people have for me.
Okay.
Yeah, same.
Alright, so just a reminder for everyone who is not casting, please do make some notes as we go. And when we get to the end of stage 2, I'll pause it and ask for feedback. If at that point, if you've got anything to input, please do put a dot into the practice cast text chat. Phew. Alright, if everyone is ready, then we can get started. Fiendfar and Honeybear, do you want to agree between you which one of you is coming in of the start of this one?
I
don't care.
prefer the host role.
All right, go ahead. Go for it. Go for it, buddy.
Do you need to practice on the host role at all? I feel more confident in the host role, so I'm happy to practice on the other side.
Do it again this Saturday.
I think, are you with Dan again?
Oh yeah, no, that's right. I'm with Dan. That's right.
Dan will probably take it.
Last time he was like, "You do it." So.
Oh, did he? Okay. If you want to practice, I'm down. I feel very confident in the.
You know, go. It's fine. Go ahead.
I'll take it. Okay, I'll take it. That's fair.
All right. In that case, bringing us in 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Ultra Liga. I'm Honeybear here with Fiendfire. We are back with another great game. Getting Component Anvil to start off with. But Fiendfire, what are you expecting from this game?
Well, we already know that they picked Completed Anvil, which means they're boring. Just kidding. I myself would pick the Completed Anvil because some of those random augment games, you know, the portals with the prismatics and the artifacts and the supporting things, getting yourself a nice completed anvil where you just pick a normal item, you know, get yourself started on the right track. I think great portal.
Absolutely. I fully agree. I do think it is a boring portal. I think you nailed it. But it can give you a little bit of direction, can give you a little understanding of what you want to do. Personally, I fall victim to the, hey, why don't I just slam this at 1-3 and see what happens? Give myself direction from there, but you never know what you're going to get, and it's not always the best case scenario. I do want to bring attention right now to this Olaf in shop. Me personally, I'm picking that up. I'm an Olaf reroller. Not sure why he's not doing it. What do you think there?
Yeah, I think it's a little strange. It's definitely one of the better headliners to just pick up and play on your board this patch, but we do see that they do have 2 Jaxes, 2 Vys, and the Gnar, so perhaps they're leaning in that Mosher direction and just want to keep the gold to potentially pick up something if they were to find, for example, a Vi in the shop. That might be more fitting for their current board. As we come over here to Liquid, who has got a Thresh, not Thresh, sorry.
Seth. Saying, oh, geez, we're back to it. I already got a Thresh. The 1-4 Thresh.
Much 3.5. Yeah, Set, as we come into the augment selections here, some very interesting ones.
Yeah, definitely ones that point you in a direction if you end up running with them. Infusion, not the greatest right now. Does roll that fast. Looking at Portable Forge, though, that's an easy one to snag. Gonna give him 2 items there. Does pick up Goldmancer Staff, is one of the best early game items. Does not end up picking it. Going for the Zhonya's, going for more of the late game power. I am not the biggest fan of that move, but does give a lot more late game power, in my opinion.
I think it's a complicated decision. I think it totally depends on how your board is looking at this moment. Goldmancer for sure, I agree, definitely
That's a lot of jinxes.
is huge. Yes, Jinx has become the terror of the patch since this past week when the patch came out. Punk Jinx, Rapid Fire Jinx, both are good. If you get yourself a 3-star Jinx, you are sitting pretty. As we see, they have slammed a Hand of Justice, which is a good flexible item pretty early. It'll be interesting how they choose to itemize Jinx later on. And it's also interesting, since they are going for this Jinx reroll comp, that they are going to be win streaking, because since Jinx is that reroll comp, it's probably going to need some bows, some swords. So going at it from a win streak perspective, where you're going to be one of those last picks on the carousel coming on this first round, it'll be interesting
Definitely.
to see what they do with that.
Yeah, Bo is definitely highest priority there. Hoping they're going to be able to pick it up with a Hand of Justice. Going to be able to do some damage early. Do love the slam and the Pantheon as well. Pantheon can hold that item for such a long time, until you start to roll into the Amumu's and the other Guardians. Mostly going to be the Amumu is going to be the hyper tank up there in the front line. But we'll see what they end up going. Jumping on into other boards, we do have great items on that Kai'Sa as well. Probably looking into more of the big shot angle. Great red buff on Ezreal late game, but can just ride this Kai'Sa too for a long time.
Yeah, TG has got a ridiculously strong board with this 2-star Kai'Sa here. Not even the headliner Kai'Sa, so that it was a natural 2-star Kai'Sa there with the red buff and the Hand of Justice. Going to be ridiculously strong. Is a little bit expensive. We see that they still do not have 10 gold, so they're going to be a little bit behind the 8-ball here in terms of econ, especially we saw earlier on that other board where they already had 20 gold in interest with their Jinxes. So it'll be interesting how Fifek here comes up with going forward. If they, as you mentioned, just use this Kai'Sa 2 to tempo and to some sort of Fast 8 Ezreal board. Or there is a possibility if they come across a Bard or a Kai'Sa headliner, there is a Kai'Sa Bard duo carry reroll comp that has been making the rounds this past patch, as well as some buffs to
Definitely
as units.
And it looks like, that's I really enjoy that one, but I'm going to stick with my main point, which was Idealism. 2 players took Idealism, another player took a component or an Anvil. So getting a lot of items early on are going to help you kind of pivot your comp. With Idealism specifically, and we saw already 2 people are taking it, you can pivot your comp into a lot of different things, like you were talking about, possibly going into that Riven, which I think is still strong, the Yone board a little bit later. Looking pretty good, yeah, and as you see the augments right here, a lot of items being taken.
Yeah, it's and a lot of different options for different comps. We see multiple different people playing that Idealism. We see someone who has the Twin Terror, so you're going to have to think that they're going to be taking some Vexes, some Twitches, and then a couple different other ones that you don't see as often. You see, I think that's Best Buddies too, down there in the corner. That has been probably not as popular of a augment this set, but definitely still has its uses. Coming back over to this Jinx board, they were in fact able to get themselves a bow. So how about that?
Bow is really important to this, and you can slam almost any bow item on that Jinx, and she's going to start to pop off. It's going to be interesting to see what they're able to get going on that. But that board's looking really strong. They're possibly going to have a Jinx before the 3-1, or a Jinx 3 before 3-1, which is just ridiculous tempo. They're going to be able to keep up with the tempo of the entire lobby while doing a 1-cost reroll, which is just insane at this point. Moving on into the fight, though, we do have kind of looking for an AP route here. More probably looking towards a Karthus, but I have seen a lot of Lulu carry. Do you think this could be a Lulu carry board coming out on us?
I think there's probably a lot of different possibilities. The Nashor's Tooth is very flexible, I think, this patch in terms of who can use the Nashor's Tooth. As you mentioned, I think a Lulu would probably be very good to take Nashers. Seraphine could even probably use Nashers if you wanted to stop at level 6 for a 2-cost reroll. There's also, as you mentioned, Karthus, who, because of his lowered mana pool in this patch, is much better suited for the Nashers than he was in the past. And then there's always the classic Ari, who loves a Nashers blue buff type of combination. So it'll be interesting to see what they end up picking going forward, but they have
Definitely
tons of options.
And looking at Liquid here, more options, I think, than anyone else. Going the AP route, most likely with that Zhonya's on the bench, but losing so much HP, making sure they get the 5 streak, and they get it, but at a huge cost. Going down to 64 HP, they are way behind the rest of the lobby as far as HP is concerned. They do have some gold to work with, but is it going to be enough? They're going to have to really put together a strong board here in stage 3, possibly holding off till stage 4, but more than likely they gotta stop the bleeding now.
Yeah, I think it's kind of might be a new patch type of deal, because with some of these artifacts, they are very specifically good on certain units, and that which units are actually good on the patch can change, patch to patch. So, for example, in the past, you have something like a Jewel Gauntlet and this Zhonya's here, you're going to be thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to play Jax, and no one is going to stop me. Well, after the 5 EADM nerf, Jax is maybe not necessarily your favorite comp to run anymore. So, your question is, what else do I play? Maybe you could have played a Twisted Fate, but then Disco also just got nerfed. So, I think figuring out in the first couple patches what's going to be strong. As we know, this Jinx is quite strong, so that's definitely looking quite like a first place at this point in the game. We'll have to see what anyone else does to potentially stop and slow down Fifek.
Absolutely, yeah. And it looks like we're going to have quite a few rerollers here as we pan through. I believe we do have that Kai'Sa reroll as well as the Katarina reroll here. This feels like an old classic back to the start of the patch. Maybe it's back, but the double-handed Justice over there wasn't one of them that got idealism, though. So I wonder if they're trying to just hopefully get it or just stealing the power from somebody else. But right now with the double Hodge, looking very, very strong, able to just heal through anything. And even at Jinx 3 just stood no chance.
Yeah, Katarina is really interesting because she, I think, has always been quite strong, especially if you hit her in the stage 3. The problem is, unless you hit the 6 crowd diver, once you hit stage 4, even 3-star Katarina just tends to fall off really hard. So
Absolutely.
This most recent patch buffed her up, and so she's a lot more stable at that 4 crowd diver interval. So
prismatic out. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm gonna stop you
lots
there.
of choices.
So we can do the feedback. All right. So everyone who's got anything to put in, please drop a dot into practice casts, and in a second I'll start going back through them. So Zeb by Wonder, do you want to start us off?
Yeah. So one thing is that you guys definitely have good chemistry. So I'm gonna start with a few things that I'm liking so far from it. There's good confidence there at times, and then there's times where there's almost rambling that happens. You both need to watch the clock on the top if you can't set a timer in your head and think about, okay, I need to wrap up this thought process because I need to be able to pass it off to my caster while we're still on the same board. Because multiple times we switched boards and we were still talking about the previous board. That's one thing that I noticed. And then the what's and whys are one thing that you both miss a lot. You'll say a thought and then you won't give the whys behind the what's. So it's oh, this idealism is good because it gives healing. But where's the rest of that thought process, right? Those are a few things that I was catching. And then, yeah, just talking more about the screens that are on board, or the boards that are on screen, not so much about what is happening throughout the board for that board that you just went from. You got to be on top of those things. As you switch boards, it's a new cast. It's basically you're staying on top of what's happening right now for the viewer because you're entertaining them. You're telling a story.
Ask about that point, and just from pure curiosity, this Spectator does look like they flip through boards quite quickly.
Sure.
I'm not sure if you guys also felt that way, but I fully agree with Z-Boy's point, and that was something I already noticed, that I'm like, I'm struggling to keep on par with it, probably because I was long-winded.
Yeah.
But it also did feel like, I'm like, holy cow, this guy's moving so fast. I'm like, I get half a point in, and he's already through 3 other boards. So I'm like, holy jeez.
And like, you will have one thing I will say is with these, you don't have a production chat talking to you about like where we're heading, things like that. And there is that in at least for Aegis, at least we have that. We have a production chat where they're telling us where we're heading, so you have an idea of like what to start prepping yourself for. So that definitely helps with your thought process. But yeah, using that clock up at the top of the screen, they were definitely not switching in between fights, right? So you have enough time, like there's 35 seconds up there right now on augments, right? So talk about these and be ready if they switch boards. Like that's also on the caster to understand, all right, this dude is scouting quickly. I need to make sure that I'm wrapping up my thoughts fast enough. Therefore, I'm staying consistent with what's happening on the screen.
Makes sense.
Oh, sorry, Fiendfire, did you want to say something else? It cut off on your microphone.
Nope. All good.
Okay.
And then one other thing I'd say, like Fiend, like you have a lot of confidence and a lot of game knowledge. And then there are times where like, almost say like, I'm not trying to say like you're not confident, but there are times where it sounds like you're unconfident with what you're saying, just because like you're trying to like, I don't know if you're like overthinking or anything like that, but your filler words start to catch up with you in those moments. Like you'll start saying a lot and that does start to come across as, oh, are they not confident on the cast anymore? And I'm not trying to, that's not me trying to be rude or anything. I hope that doesn't come across like that.
No.
That's just more like something that I was noticing as like you got further into your thought process. If you're coming with really good, consistent thoughts, be confident about those thoughts. You play this game, you know what you're doing.
Okay.
All right, cool. Let's see. So left.
That actually ties into what I wanted to say a little bit. Some of the points felt like they were stretching for a little bit too long, mostly because of those pauses, because the observations were really good ones. And like, you have reasons to be confident. So like, try and be. No need to stop, think, say, just keep going, talking about that Kai'Sa, how he actually might want to reroll her because he already has 4. Once he has a headliner, that's 7, right? That's a great angle to go for. These are all great points. But like, it could have been done a little bit more concisely, and it kept going on even after switching to another board for quite some time, I think.
Right.
So that felt a little bit stretched. Aside from that, one thing that I wanted to mention is that like, you guys really did not take a long time to build a really nice chemistry going on. In stage 1 at the beginning, there was a time where you talked over each other for like 3 or 4 seconds, I believe. So that was a little bit jarring. But after that, the entirety of stage 2, the beginning of stage 3, you guys flowed really well. So that's some really nice adjustment there.
Appreciate it.
Okay, cool.
All right, cool. Sealy.
You guys are great. I love the energy pairing of Honeybear's got tons of energy, where Fiendfire really does a really good job of leading us through what's happening. And so it's just a really fun pairing, first of all. So I agree with Z-Boy on that as well. And he took a lot of what I was going to say also, with the timing of stuff. Looking at ends of rounds, looking at starting of augment choices, looking at some of these other things are really important. And I mean, Z-Boy said, I think we were friends or something, because he said a lot of what I was going to say. Anyway, but the why is really important, and you're educating, not just entertaining. So thinking about that when you're working on making your points.
With that, I'm gonna grab the both of you guys then. So for making the why, so the 2 things have been said, and I agree with both of them. But if you could this next time around, obviously I'm gonna be working on that. Find a spot that I maybe do it well or poorly, and just pick those out of, am I fast enough to get my point across, and does it say the why? Because I think both are correct in, I'm not saying enough to get like the full point across to include the why, but I'm also not saying the point quick enough to be able to get it in while we're still on that board. If that makes sense. I know I'm struggling with words there, but if we can try to find a time where it's like, okay, you did that correctly. You said what it was, why it was, and you got it across in the correct time frame. That'd be great.
On it.
A general thing which can be useful to try with that particular thing you're working on there is to start with the why. And don't spend time explaining what it is and then say why it's important. Just lead off with some kind of explanation as to why you're saying it before you get into detail about it. And then if you need to, you can provide more detail afterwards. But that's usually a good way to make sure it happens.
Because the why, maybe not putting words in your mouth, but the why can be the what, but the what can't be the why. That kind of a good way to look at it.
Like, you can start off by saying, like, this isn't a great example, but, you know, this is the most important thing that's going to happen for this player this stage, or something. Or, like, this is a crazy powerful unit. Just whatever it is you're leading to, just start with it.
Good. How are you?
Okay.
Cool. I think that was silly. So Quinn.
Z-Boy again also said a lot of what I was going to say too, just like a little bit too much rambling.
Yes.
The thing that he said about like watching the timer on the rounds was a really good tip that ProTroid gave to me when like I did like my interview with him. So like absolutely take that and like use it as like a utility thing, because like it helped me so much when I was doing my like for interview for Aegis and stuff. And then again, like you guys have great synergy. That was very apparent right from the start. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, and similar to some feedback that was given between Left and I is like connecting everything to the overall game, I think needs to be done just a little bit more to like the overall situation. Yeah.
Context on it. So is that, and I'm just bringing up one point that I made, which I think is kind of what you're hinting at. So when I made the point of like Liquid is behind the tempo of the overall lobby, say like more things similar to that, to bring the whole thing together. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one.
So also close it like with the other end of the spectrum, right? FIFA being on a like full win streak and with a really strong board, and we'll see if he can cap it out high enough to win out the whole thing.
There's a lot of other
Right,
things
so
I can say.
somebody
That was just
behind,
using that one
somebody
as an
overhead.
example.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's one thing that like happens. Like, Boop pointed this out to me about my cast, and it's something that like I very much now listen for every time I hear a cast, and that's parallel casting. And that's where you both are kind of doing a cast, but you're not casting together. If that makes sense. Like, you're saying cohesive ideas, but they aren't playing off of each other. It's almost like, oh, you said this thing, so I'll piggyback off of that, but I'm just going to keep kind of reiterating that. And instead of that, like, tell the story, make it more complex it, you know what I'm saying? But like also keep it to the tone of the story that you're making.
Okay.
I don't know if that made sense. I kind of just rambled
No,
there.
yeah, no.
No,
No,
that's
that makes lots of sense.
Twiggy. Did you want to put something in?
No, actually, people just talk like a lot before me, and I feel like everything has been said already. And also, like, just a little thing to check is liquid is not the name; it's the Orga, right? Like, it's always the
Yes.
Orga in.
I wasn't
in
going to bother
capital
bringing that
letters
up
in
because it
front-
just
in front of the
didn't seem like
name.
it
So it's
mattered.
Alan ZQ. That's the player, and the Orga, like the capital letters in front, is always the Orga.
Yeah,
So,
I did
maybe that's,
also know
one
that,
of the
but
things.
I couldn't pronounce the name, and so because I've never seen most of these players before, so
Oh, really?
yeah, I've never.
They're so familiar. Like Vivek is a big
Yeah,
player.
not as many of 'em.
Kyrgyzstan, Alan
Alan
ZQ.
as well.
Dawandowski, I know.
Alan won,
Lieutenant
Let's,
Sutton,
Alan
I
won
don't know
the-
as many of them,
the
so
Legends of Runeterra Worlds.
Yeah.
Let's not get too sidetracked on the player names.
Yeah, it's
so
fine,
I would
fine.
just, I'm
But
probably
also,
still gonna call it Liquid just because that's
It's fine.
all
it
I got
doesn't.
for
It
now.
doesn't matter.
That's what I can hit for now.
Okay,
If it was
okay.
a real cast, I would know these players.
Yeah.
I believe in you. Don't worry.
Sorry, Twiggy. Do you want to say anything else?
I appreciate it though. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also like the little joke at the beginning that Finn said about like yeah that region is like a little bit boring, but no, it's just a joke, and then just like that's kind of a like very interesting introduction into the cast to just like introduce yourself like a little bit like making a little bit sympathy in that. I liked it a
Hmm.
lot.
Putting a
Cool.
personal spin on things. Yeah, that was really nice,
Yeah.
actually.
I liked it a lot as well.
I'll agree. I
Pi
think
Pi
Finn
Hank,
killed it
you
there.
Yeah,
you
I
wanna
actually
explain?
remember one. Two small things because everything has been said. So, but the first one that I really liked was at 1-4 when I think Fiend, I'm sorry, Fiend,
Yep.
Fiend, okay,
That's fine.
said that Fresh was in the board and Honeybear was like Fresh so early in the game. I think that was amazing because it gives you confidence to mess up and still like joke about it. That builds a really good chemistry throughout the entire cast.
Appreciate
And the
that.
other thing I just wanted to say, just to not try to reiterate, but just to add on the knowing when to end points or things, is that maybe having one or two transition words or things to close out a paragraph and say the message of, okay, I'm stopping you. You start, because there are a couple of times, especially with Finn, because with Finn was ending a point and then she didn't because she was trying to add two more words, and then Hannibal was trying to he tried to jump in on that, and they like clashed on the voices. And just try to find a couple of words that just help you transition from one person to the other, and just so you can just pass the ball more fluently.
Hmm.
Sense.
Yeah, that's it. You're amazing.
Yeah,
Appreciate
they
it.
are. Like literally, that was so nice.
Oh,
Hi, that's amazing.
I'll say the same thing everyone else did, that a lot of the stuff's been covered. So just to, I guess, to expand on some of the stuff that's been said already. So for Fiendfire, yeah, it's, I think the end goal of what you should be doing with what people were saying about your points are too long is that your points are good, but it feels like you maybe lack confidence in like landing your point fully. So a lot of the time, you kind of like the ending will not be strong. So you'll have like a good point, and then it will just, you either start talking about something else, which I don't recommend because it will kind of kill the previous point. If you can try and finish your points in a strong and definitive way, I think you'll come across much more authoritative. Rather, at the moment it feels like you're not fully confident in what you're saying, so even though it's good material, people really remember the end of the point, and those ends are not strong right now.
Okay.
I really liked that you were characterizing the players as like aggressive, and kind of like, you know, just trying to humanize them. I think that made a huge difference in terms of like giving people stuff to hook onto. The Lulu point, I really like that you I don't know, I think you were disagreeing with it, but you kind of like, you expanded on the Lulu point without, in a way which I think was disagreeing, without making it sound like it was the case, which was really good. One thing I also liked as well is
I agree with that.
you bringing in the patch talk. I actually, like, I was curious, I haven't really heard people do that before, but you brought the conversation out of talking board to board, player to player, and talking about the patch overall, and I actually really liked that. Like, I think I might try and include more of that in my own casting, of being like, it's a good way to sort of to palette cleanse partway through the game, to just be like, we're not going to talk about what's on the board for like a 30 seconds or a minute or so, we're just going to talk about bigger overall concerns, like, you know, what's going on with the meta and things at the moment. I think that worked really, really well.
I agree with that, especially because she was confident in it.
No, I think it was really good. Like, I genuinely think that was a really good technique. For Honeybear, I would... The thing which stuck out for me from the other game is I wouldn't bother saying that you weren't a fan of something that somebody did unless you've got something substantial to say about it. Because, as it is, it just kind of... It puts you in opposition with the player, and our credibility, it's not like, if you haven't got a particularly great reason to try and gamble your credibility as a caster, I wouldn't do it. And talking about something that someone didn't take isn't generally going to be particularly productive anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like, with the Gold Monster stuff, like, if you start, I was a little worried you're going to start talking about how great the Gold Monster stuff was when he didn't take it. Though you did eventually get off at that point, but
Yeah,
as it was,
I was talking about as soon as it showed. I want to make sure I got that point across of how great it was because I thought he was going to click it instantly, or not instantly, but I thought he was going to take it. But yeah, I did get stuck on it a little bit. I fully agree.
That got nerfed.
I was
this patch, by the
perplexed.
way.
Did it get nerfed this patch?
Yeah,
it got
good.
nerfed this patch.
No,
I
but
missed-
in
I
the
missed
patch
that then.
notes there, right? Because Goldmaster got severely nerfed, right? Instead of 2
Yeah, it's
gold, it
half
just
the
dropped
gold
It
to
must have
one,
been it
right?
then.
It has to
So
gold now.
Yeah, I
that
didn't-
might be the reason, right?
Didn't see it. But yeah, it could be the reason.
yeah. So
It also
maybe in the
blocks you.
future you can just hold off on committing into anything too hard until you see what they've chosen.
Sir.
Like, is there any room for negativity at any point, or is it always like?
I think if
leave
it serves the
taste
purpose
in your
of the
mouth.
cast, like in this instance, I don't think it kind of like if you can do something with it, I would say that's fine. But if you can't, if you're not going to do anything apart from say I didn't like that, then it's a risky move to make. I don't know what other people think about it.
Yeah,
I feel like
the
if
only
you
time I ever-
couch it, like if you couch it in like something else, like in like sarcasm or like I come at because like I guess a lot of ages the AL, which is like diamond platinum players, so they do a
Mm.
bunch of stuff where you're like, that is like the most horrifically wrong thing that you could possibly do that you've ever seen in your life, but you can't just like say that. So you sort of have to like, I don't know, like joke, like you could be like, I don't know what they're doing. I'm interested to see. Like I can't read their mind. What are they doing? Like let's find out. And so, I don't know, like treating it like less as like that's like the worst possible move in the world, and just figuring out some other way to be like, what are they gonna do with that? That sort of thing.
Yeah, I think like
I do
using,
try and-
Like, can I talk about a specific example? Because in the previous game, there was a player who took final reserves, right? We didn't really get to that point, but later on, he completely mishandled that, and when it popped, he had level 9 and 50 gold, and 50 XP. So a lot of the resources provided to him by the augment got completely wasted, and because of that, he actually got a really bad placement. So what do you do when something like that occurs? Like a pretty serious mistake. Do you just skim through it? Do you just not talk about it too much, or how do you approach that kind of situation?
For me, I use stats. That's how you don't present it as a negative thought, but you present how it's been negative in the patch or in the current relevance of the game state, right? Like this is what's happening right now within the stats. Like you're using something that's a concrete evidence. Stats are numbers that don't lie, right? So,
I mean,
that's the thing that I use.
but I don't think the mistake was stat orienting, just picking the augment, but the way he handled it, right, was that he wasted a lot of resources because of a misplay, right?
I think you can
So
present it
not
as
choosing the augment with the issue, but
I don't think you necessarily need to pass judgment on what someone's doing, but you can say what they were what you assume that they were trying to do. Like if you say with the final reserves example there, you can say, oh, normally when we see people going for final reserves, they ideally want to be able to get up to level 10 when that thing pops. That hasn't happened for this player here, so they're in some pretty major trouble caught between level 9 and 10 without the power they were expecting. And that way, you're not criticizing them.
that sounds really good.
Yeah, you're just saying what is happening. You don't need to say. You can kind of imply it's a mistake, but there's no point saying that because, if people want to be critical, they can just see that for themselves anyway. You don't need to shit talk the player.
Exactly. That's kind of what I was saying. Like with stats, I mean, so final reserves right now is averaging a 5.29. Let's see how this pans out for them. We are having a high win rate percentage of a 16.8, right? Like you don't need to go all the way into that level of it, but you see what I'm saying? Like you can still spin it into where it's like, oh, this has huge payoffs when you actually know what you're doing with it, as Counterfeit was used no stats at all. So you can rely on stats to kind of allow yourself to talk about something in not a negative light, but how it just has not been performing up to certain standards.
And following on to what Zeboy is saying, you can present it as risky. So,
Correct.
so in that case, if Zeboy was Z-Boy was going to
You're
use
good.
the stats
I like
there.
Zed. That works for me.
You could be this is a risky path this player has taken and it hasn't paid off here. Then that's perfectly fine. It's the same way that if somebody misses on their roll down, we would tend to present it as, they just spent all of their money looking for their 3-star and they did not get it. That's a real heartbreaker. it's a negative thing that has happened, but it doesn't necessarily have to reflect on the player.
Mm-hmm.
We'll say a counterpoint. I
thanks.
do think like different game, different casting experience. But a guy like Freak built his entire career roasting player.
It's a very high risk proposition, I would
So-
say.
Right, but I know. I'm not Freak. I'm never gonna be Freak. I'm not like that guy is one of the only people that can do it. But I think it can be done in a way if you can present it correctly. Yeah, he roasts people all the time when he casted.
It's got to be low key roasts, you know. You just
He
gotta-
high key roasted. He called people out, told them they're terrible for what the choices they've made. He went a little far. He went pretty far. But I'm just saying it was one of the best.
It's a
Not
casting
getting
choice
away
you
with
can
that in
make.
2024. I'll say
Let
that.
me say,
much.
how much is he casting these days?
I mean, he's got a new job
I know he does.
Oh yeah,
That's-
that
Getting
had a
roasted
balancing
himself.
now, but
that he does.
Okay. So just to back for the things so we can get on to the second half. So Honeybear, I really liked that you were trying to bring in multiple like boards in terms of your storytelling with the idealism things. I think that's great. I think we should all be doing that a lot more because we've got 8 players is too many players to keep track of. So the more you can kind of group those players together and try and provide connective tissues, the more comprehensible it becomes as an overall lobby. So yeah, I really like that.
Yep.
I would be careful of using technical terms like tempo without giving some kind of stuff around that which helps people who've never heard that term before understand what you're talking about. Because tempo is particularly notorious for being something that means a different thing to like nearly every person who uses it.
Mhm.
So you can, I'd say the first time, like anytime you use a technical term like that, I try and provide explanation into what you're saying. Like, oh, I know, left. Wait, there's a player called Left in this lobby. Same one?
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Left, were you playing?
So yeah, so you say like, oh yeah, Left is playing a really aggressive tempo. He's been spending gold like crazy. He's got nothing left in the bank, but his board's really, really strong, and he can put down pressure on other players. Like, you kind of explain what tempo is as you are using the word. And then if you want to bring it up again later and be like, oh, Left, we mentioned Left was pushing tempo, spending aggressively before, but he hasn't been able to build up a win streak. That's a really big problem now that he's got no money left over. Just stuff like that where you explain as you go.
Definitely. I did feel like, correct me if you think I'm wrong, I did feel like I did that with my use of it because I was speaking specifically to the health of the lobby, and I did bring it back to the health of the lobby is what I was referring to, but maybe I didn't do it in a elegant enough way to get my point across correctly.
I don't know. Tempo's just so weird. It's like different people
It's a
have
weird
different
word.
ideas.
Maybe I'll remove it from my
It's like-
vocabulary.
It's pretty complicated. Like, I wouldn't necessarily, because it's got like, relates to board strength and like how different comps work, and it relates to the patch, and I guess it's not.
Is it more about the word then?
Yeah.
I think it's
hard to
an
explain.
unnecessarily technical term unless you want to define it. Again, just remember like
Unless you're like watching someone like if you're like watching, if we were only watching, well Fifek's weird because he's playing Jinx, right? So like Jinx reroll, so that's like a weird one to like talk about in terms of tempo, because like
did
that's
use it
and you see what I mean? Like tempo is just so weird to talk about because it's like like some people would be like, okay, like if you're watching someone like Setsuko play, and you're like, and he's playing like, when he plays like Fast 9, and then you talk about how he like plays tempo, but he's not playing tempo because he's playing for greed for econ, but that's also technically like tempo, but it's not like. And then there's people who are like, I'm gonna win streak every game, and that's playing tempo because you're slamming everything, so you're forcing the other players in the like something like that.
yeah,
I
nobody.
think it's too
I
broad
feel
of a
like-
term specifically for this game.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I feel like tempo is something that is basically lobby specific for every game. It depends on how deep players are rolling in general, right? So how deeply they're committing in order to make their board strong relative to like the rest of the lobby.
Yes.
So if somebody's
Yeah.
committing more than the other, they're playing high tempo. Less than the others, low tempo, right? So Setsuko would usually be a low tempo player because he's greedy and saves up so much just to go fast 9, right?
Yeah.
All right.
It's like
Sorry, I do want to move us on to the second half of this. So for the second time round, starting with you, Fiendfire, what kind of stuff do you want to try and like develop in the second half that we can keep an eye out for?
I think definitely trying to keep points shorter, being able to then like pass to Honeybear, I think more, and then also so a lot of that, I think, and trying not to trying to sound more confident in ending points, as opposed to, but I think that ties to as well keeping things shorter. I think if I naturally do both, I'll probably improve.
I think what you just said is a good example of it happening.
Exactly.
All right, cool. So points shorter, passing more, and ending strong. I think just try and cut yourself off before, like, as soon as you feel like you've got to the end of your point, just be like, bam, I'm done.
Yeah.
Honeybear, how about you?
I think her and I are very similar. I think it's kind of a team problem that we had, not a problem, quote unquote, but right. I think it's just that dynamic of making sure, okay, when the boards come across, we get our point, pass it on, type deal, so that we can make sure we're talking about as many boards as possible and getting our points off in a timely manner.
Okay, cool.
And why? Gotta focus on why.
Yeah, the why.
Why?
Yeah, hit the why. Get my points across while we're on that board. Yeah, I do hope this guy slows down on his his board movements.
It's definitely an adjustment. Aegis
Yeah,
will like
it's
sit
faster
on like,
paced
one
than
board
I'm
for
used
like
to.
5 rounds, and you'll be like, okay, I gotta keep thinking of stuff to like talk about. And this is like, okay, we're on this board, we're on the other board, we're on that. So it's like a little bit different. I think that.
Yeah. My last few casts I've also been the producer, so I'm used to. You're like, oh, I want to talk about this board. Click.
Yeah.
All right, let's get back into it then. Are you both ready?
Absolutely.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
Looking at the prismatics here, Fiendfire, does anything stand out an option they're going to take? It actually already took a harm assist, instant slam. It looked like there.
Yeah, Alan's Q has got to be a little bit concerned that they are at 52 HP and now are hitting this prismatic board, which throws a huge wrench in the lobby in terms of board strength. You know, someone like Fifek up there who just hit Kaisa 3 is now going to have a prismatic augment on the board. And here they have to now basically hit their board as soon as possible. They're playing this Jax board with the Zanyas with the Jewel Gauntlet, and currently only has those 3 Jaxes on Honeybear.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about this early, how this is a possibility. It does feel like it's from one of the old patches, but man, this Jax is going to slap right now, coming up against the Jinx again, and that Zhonya is going to really pay off. Doesn't end up taking the win, but much, much stronger of a board now than he had just a stage ago.
Yeah, he's got to be thinking right now, I just have to figure out a way to stop losing health. If you're Alan's Q, you're probably thinking, this is not the way I wanted this game to go so far. But you gotta, if you're Alan's Q, sort of pick a direction and just pinpoint all of your focus on that specific comp so that you can really start making pinpoint decisions that are accurate. And
Definitely.
most
Looking around the lobby here, we do have that Kaisa reroll. Twin Terror board looking strong. Interested to see if it's going to be as strong as the other iterations of the Twin Terror boards that we've seen. I have not seen the Kaisa one ever. And so I'm pretty excited to watch this board, see what it actually does, see what he's cooking up here. I feel like this Jinx board is just following us around the map at this point. We're gonna see it every time on the opposite side. This time it does not get the win though, because that Kai'Sa is slapping.
Yeah, it's really interesting that Fifek chooses to go for the Twin Terrors Kai'Sa here, because so much of the time when you're seeing Twin Terrors, it's in the context of some sort of executioner board, be it Twitch, Vex, or Samira. So, especially bringing in this Kai'Sa here, it will be quite interesting, especially since she does a lot of single target damage. So it'll be interesting later into the game how that ends up being in terms of the board strength.
Definitely. And looking around the lobby a little bit more, it does look like we have a lot more. Now that we get the full augments, we do get a lot more combat augments this time around. Still some item augments that are going to be very strong, but a couple more combat augments, which is going to be nice to see. See the late game boards getting stronger. Onto this board, I don't know if I've seen this used for a Senna before. I'm interested to see how this is going to turn out for him. But that is going to be a strong Senna with a strong front line currently.
Yeah, this CubixCon coming in here has got some interesting itemization choices to make here, because they have got that Spark slammed on their K'Sante there. So that means they're probably leaning AP, you'd think. But looking here at our items, Honey Bear, I don't see too many AP components. What about you thinking?
Not too many. They're really struggling in the AP department. Probably hoping to find some real soon. I mean, you can have some damage items that can go on AP, AD. Giant Slayer is just a great item overall, but looking a little bit weaker at this point than they probably want to be. Going to be starting to lose a lot of health going into stage 4. Probably going to try and build it up right around the stage 4 mark. As we switch on over to this board, we do have what was at one point looking like the old Twin Terror board with that Vex, but transitioning here, I'm not sure what they're cooking just yet. They have a lot. It's an AP route for sure, but a lot of options still on the table for them.
Yeah, and this is, I think, an example of how prismatic second augments can just throw complete wrenches into your game plan, because we have so many different players in this lobby that are playing reroll comps, which ordinarily spike on stage 3 once you hit, especially the 1-cost rerolls. And so to then hit a prismatic augment, which is more likely the player is going to choose a combat augment on stage 3. So the board strength from these reroll comps that have more than likely hit their 3-starred units, not the cost, are going to be just so incredibly strong through stage 3 that some of these other boards that were perhaps playing for level 8 or even level 7 3-cost rerolls, they're definitely a little bit more unstable as we come back over to Alon's queue.
Yeah, speaking of unstable, we are on this board still only 3 Jaxes. Or if they're actually going to commit to the Jax reroll, they pushed to level 7. So this round is going to kind of tell which direction they're going to go. Are they going to try to level to 8, or are they going to actually be re-rolling for this Jax on level 7? It's going to tell right here. It's quite important for them to figure this out, being at 45 HP, going into stage 4-1.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think at this point, they have so much committed in terms of that Urgot. They have a set. There we go, 2-star set right there. They have the Jaxes. And being at 45 HP, I think that their best decision from this point forward would be to just keep the direction going and try for that Jax board, especially because so many other players playing reroll. You're going to have to think that you're going to be able to more easily hit that Jax.
Should hit it. A lot of 2 costs out of the lobby already, especially with this Katarina that we were looking at earlier. The Katarina is quite strong right now. Obviously, they still got to get the units around it in order to fully stabilize. But against this Vex 1, it should be decent, a decent fight for them. If a loss, just going to be a small one.
Yeah, and I got to say, playing Katarina and watching your Katarina fight on these boards, it's kind of heart attack inducing, because she is, simultaneously good and terrifying because she'll be near death and then she will cast once, kill a couple units, and suddenly be full health again. And how about the silver augments, Honey Bear?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the 4-2 Recon Bob, I wanted it so bad. Obviously, it is probably not the best choice. I think they really picked it. And they are showing their hand right now, rolling down. They're going to have to try and find this Jax. They're going to desperately need this Jax if they're going to be able to hold on to this game. So how far do they roll? Let's see. That is a double Zed shop, though. That's pretty
Yeah.
exciting. Oh, they should pick it up.
You can see Alan's Q is thinking here. They're like, do I take the Zeds, because they are leaning into more of this 4 Mosher board at the moment, as opposed to last patch, or 2 patches ago rather, where you would play the 5 EDM. But they do pick up the Zeds. You have to imagine that if they can hit these 3-star Jacks, that finding a Zed, finding a Zac, perhaps they can pivot towards that 5 EDM if they can find stabilization.
Absolutely. It looks like they stabilized there just a little bit. Jinx ends up going down. The Jax is able to hold strong, but these reroll comps are starting to all come online. You see it on every single board. Everyone is starting to hit. So it's just more important for them to be able to pick that up to get their strength going. Even the Kai'Sa over here, or excuse me, the Seraphine over here being able to hit. One of my favorite comps, but got the full upgrades, or trying to get the full upgrades to the front line as well. But Dawidowski down there in last also needs to start stepping up in order to keep up with the HPs of the lobby.
Yeah, and it's gotta feel bad to have this strong Seraphine, but the front line being, other than Echo, so poor, because as we see, when Seraphine does cast, she's doing quite a bit of damage, but she's just not quite able to cast as frequently as she'd like because her front line is dying to this Kayle.
Yeah, the front line died to Kayle real fast, and that's still a Kayle too. That is just wrecking Dawidowski's board, shredded through the front line like it wasn't even there, and pulled on through. Another reroll comp that we haven't seen too much of right now is going to be that Lulu. Wasn't sure I don't think that's the same player I was even talking about bringing the Lulu in. I ended up finding a Lulu chosen and stuck with it. Here we go. One of the final carousels here. Anything stand out with the full augments that you see?
Well, with the silver augments, it's a bunch of combat augments. We see Haskis there did take the rolling for days, so potentially to get some nice rolls. Either I don't know if we've seen much of Haskis's board, so I can't recall off the top of my head if they're playing reroll or fast 8, but rolling for days is very good, I think, in either case, to get those free rerolls to cap off your board.
Absolutely. There are a few reroll augments there, which speaks to the lobby of being many 2 to 3 cost rerolls. You're not going to be, or we haven't seen a lot of the going late, going to the level 9 boards that we saw early on in the set. It's much more this lobby about the 2 to 3 cost rerolls. So, and right now it seems like if you hit, you're top in the lobby. If you didn't hit, you're starting to suffer a little bit. And so it is going to be a little bit of that RNG. We'll see what boards are going to be able to capitalize going into the late game here.
Yeah, as we come in, and now we're seeing how this Twin Terrors Kai'Sa is working. Unfortunately, the main Kai'Sa that is itemized there seems to have gotten stuck onto that Echo. Does eventually get past, but we can sort of see how potentially going into later in the game, as more tanks are there for Kai'Sa to shoot at, she might struggle going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And here we have, I believe that's a Philios 3 cost. We did not see that starting to pop off. I believe we saw the chosen pick, but did not realize that was even a reroll possibility. So good look on them, still trying to find the Twitch, but that Aphelios is hitting hard.
Yeah, well, when everyone's playing reroll, I think you gotta join the party, Honey Bear, because
Absolutely.
Otherwise, no fun.
Definitely, and they are still looking for that Twitch, down to 11 gold, very low on the gold, level 6, so they're a little bit behind the leveling of the rest of the lobby, but they did hit their front line. They got the strong Aphelios, still just looking for that Twitch, but still should be able to get some good wins out of this. Going up against that Seraphine, not sure if the Seraphine's going to be able to shred the front line or not, but if it does hit that Twitch again, it's gone.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Huskus, has to deal with this Akali over here, who, despite rolling tank items, still is able to be quite the annoyance to that Twitch and that Aphelios.
Absolutely, and that was just tough positioning on that one. Spreading for the Seraphine is so important, and it was just a coin flip for him. Ended up clumping that front line and ended up paying a little bit of the price for it. But here we switch it on over. I love this board. I don't know if the augments are the greatest for the board, but Left has put together one of my favorite boards. I do think they really needed, probably didn't get the best augments that they wanted, but putting together a strong board, I'm hopeful that they can pull out a couple wins and not go first eighth.
Yeah, Left, you feel bad. They've got the 1 HP. Maybe they can scrape another win out there. Maybe they can somehow win one, get a seventh, get a sixth, perhaps. But it feels bad because
Might all
potential
depend
is
here.
there.
Pulling down.
Tragically,
if
we'll
they can
never
hit.
know.
No!
It was the biggest eighth in the history of the world. This was the most loyal game I've had in like months. Everybody's hitting 3 stars, stage 3, early stage 4. I'm sitting on Vex 1,
Yeah.
4, 6.
And people
it
are
was
randomly
insane.
taking your units, like the guy playing Pantheon Twitch.
Yeah.
Left, where's
Alright,
your
and
twin
it's
terror,
just-
man?
it's so
You
Sorry.
put twin
It's
terror.
jinxed.
If you hit
both
twin
is
terror, this
jinxed.
board is cracked.
Shush, y'all.
I mean,
we need
binary's
to get
pretty
on with
good,
this.
though.
I mean, like,
Binary's
even
pretty
without,
good.
it's great. It's great if you
Left.
can play 6
Left.
executioners,
Left, please.
but I hit no units.
Left.
I
Shut
just
up.
hit no units at all. Sorry.
Right.
Unlucky.
I'm gonna start using summer mutes soon. Alright, so please drop your dots into chat. We are pretty far behind schedule, that's why I really want to move things forward as quick as possible. But I think there's a lot of good stuff in this last cast, so I don't want to leave it unsaid. Alright, let's start off with Sealy. Hit us with some knowledge in it.
Oh, so much that I just make up. Anyway, so a few things that I noticed this time. I was listening just a little bit closer. I think, Honeybear, a tendency of yours is to repeat the last thing that they just said as the beginning of what you said. And that is a habit I had to break as well, because it's just a good form of active listening, but also on a commentary desk, all that kind of does is clutter things up. And so that is something I noticed that you're doing. Like, I put it in here is like, you repeated the front line died to KO really fast. After Fiend had just said that. So, yeah, thanks, Protroid. I know you're the one that
I broke it out of you after a couple of months, but it took a while. Yeah.
It took a long time. It did.
It's a great thing for a pastor, not as good for a caster.
Right. Agreed.
Oh, dang.
It's true.
That word
It
play
is
there,
true,
that was
it's
good
true.
for a caster.
We come from the same branch over here.
Say it later.
There's also
Alright.
fire.
Mhm.
That was a fire sentence. And then
Thanks,
just
man.
one more thing for Fiend Fire. You start a lot of your phrases with "yeah." Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Anyway, just something to note. But otherwise, I thought you guys I really enjoy you guys as a duo. So thanks.
Hmm.
I actually have to
Alright.
Appreciate it.
roll, so I'll see you guys later.
Wow.
See you, man. Thanks, man.
Cheers, Silly. Getting out before Protroid flames anymore, I understand. So I'll leave like a beat after everyone feeds back, just if either of you want to jump in with a response, otherwise I'll just move it on. I'll take that as a no response to what Celia said, but he did flee the building. So let's go next on to Left.
Yeah, so I had mostly things to say about Fiendfire here. It was an awesome catch with Kai'Sa 3. The second Kai'Sa 3 got hit at 3-2. You immediately picked up on that, and that was great because the screen wasn't really there. It was just there on the side, but it was really an awesome catch to just know that something this important, this impactful happened this early. So that was great. But a little bit later, like you started moving on with your point, right? And then they showed FIFA's board. He had that Kai'Sa 3 with Twin Terror, and you were at a great point to wrap your point, but you kind of paused and then said and then you try to keep going, right? When it was probably the time to wrap it up and move on to actually talking about this twin terror thing. And it was basically 3 times in a row in that stage 3 that I noted that like you kind of have difficulty wrapping up your points confidently, like quite a lot. Maybe look for some sort of phrases that you can use in order to come off a little bit stronger. You're more confident there because this seems like it's an issue that like keeps repeating. So figure out ways how to wrap up points in a way that sounds confident, that's concise, and that allows you to move on to what your co-caster can say about the topic.
Sounds good.
All right. So next up we have the disruptor, the madman of New Jersey. It's Protroid.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you two thought you could escape me. Honeybear, like, I've been meaning to get you into some more Aegis stuff. I am so sorry. Being laid off has really prevented me from doing a lot of stuff that I want to do right now. But I promise. I will
Praying for you, man.
Thank you so much. I will get you on an Aegis broadcast, I promise. Fiendfire, you gotta submit your availability. But in terms of actual feedback for right now, I came in late, so I don't have as much I would like to. But to be clear, both of you made a lot of good points consistently, right? Like, there was definitely some of the things that was already talked about. I also noted down the same concern of Honeybear, you repeating a few things every now and then. But you both would make good points. I think you could both also just use a little more confidence behind the words a tiny bit more, where I hear a little bit of bet hedging kind of in both of your directions, where you don't quite go as hard as you possibly could making the point, because you're almost afraid you might be a little bit wrong. It's okay to be wrong. Just be confident when you're wrong and you'll be fine. Because worst case scenario, your co-commentator will correct you and you'll get a conversation out of that. And that's always an interesting thing to see. To keep going, how much have you two casted with each other before? Just first and foremost.
First time ever.
First time.
Yeah, I
ever.
don't think. Yeah, I've listened to Honeybear Cast.
Yeah.
Same.
You both, as I think CLE was talking about a little bit, you both have complementary styles, which is good. But I think you both had 2 different levels of energy coming into this, and that felt very palpable for me. Where Honeybear, you were like 3 degrees higher, or like a few degrees higher than where Fiendfire was. And I feel like that means Fiendfire, you should try to go up a little, and Honeybear, you should try to go down a little when casting with each other. Because I felt like I was getting a little bit of tonal whiplash between the 2 of you. Still, like I said, very good though. And hold on, I had 2 other. I had 2 more points. Sorry, I talk about. It's almost like I do this a lot, or anything like that. Both of you should watch the timer a little bit more in the top right corner of your screen. It's fantastic. Just make sure that you're not going too long with your points. If you feel like you are, usually over that 15-second mark, it's probably a good time to pass to your co-commentator in order to make sure that you're not talking yourself into a circle like I'm starting to. Fiendfire, a call out for you. Otherwise, no fun was fantastic. I wrote that in all caps in my notes, and I want to hear more of that because it just made me giggle. But something that kind of builds from that too is I want to hear both of you talk about what you feel like how the changes are happening right now will affect the next round or the next stage or what's happening next. Because as a commentator, right, like we're talking about the things that everyone can see. Our job is just injecting all the energy that says, here's why it's meaningful, and here's where we think it's going to go. And from all of that, that's how you can have these additive good things kind of going on here. And with that, that is all my notes, and I am so sorry I said that all. I said a lot, and I said it all very quickly, so I'm so sorry about that.
That's good.
I feel that. Appreciate it,
Alright.
Protroid.
Always.
Protroid, I will say that if you recall, I used to, and I still do, get very hype over random things that I think are fun. But I'm doing better. Doing better at it. I'm calming down my hypeness.
And be clear,
I hope you can. I'm trying to find a level of you can still hear me smile through every word I have, while
I'll stop you right there. I can very clearly. You are
while working on sticking with like my co-caster, and that's definitely a tough thing for me.
Yeah, and it's okay. Like I said, like I feel like just going into all this, like, yes, I've heard you cast before. you have improved because you've been doing this a little bit more. So all that is well and good, and also you're seeking out workshops like this, so that also helps as well. Yeah, no other notes. Good job.
All right, get out of the way for Pie Hat.
Well, Protroid kind of said a lot of the same things I wanted to say, so that's the bad part of it. The final point every single time. It's okay. I just wanted to. One of the things I wanted to add was the levels of energy. I think after the Kaisa happened from 3-3 to around 4-3, the energy kind of just went down. Like Honeybird just ended up like going very, very, very like down in the voice and how he just was trying to catch up on Fiend's energy. And then from 4-3 onwards, where the fights kind of started to work to have more nuance to it, and Honeybird was almost trying to do a play-by-play. Like the energy was ramping up, and even Fiend even caught up to that, and also tried to match a little towards that level. So that was a nice change of flow. So just be mindful of having long down moments. And after that, one of the other things I wanted to add was that just try to set up more of the important things that are going to happen. For example, in the 4-2 augments, you two were, I don't remember what was the topic that you guys were discussing about, but you were talking about that, and the augment just happened, and it went off, and there wasn't any real anticipation towards it. And things like that, you can also set up things like, okay, people are going to do massive rolldowns now in 4-1. The rerollers are trying to hit, or he's going to have a massive power spike, or for example, Alan. If Alan doesn't find this item on the carousel, he's going to get doomed. So those things to set up for the people who aren't as knowledgeable, or for people who are just trying to get into the game, there are like good catching points, good points that they can catch on to. So yes, it's basically that, just trying to set up more things. And the final thing I wanted to add was mostly for Fiend, because when I listen to you, I remember my casts at Worlds, which were something like you're thinking what you're saying while you're speaking, and meanwhile you're speaking, you're overthinking the words that you're overthinking, and after doing that, you start doubting the words and say, wait, maybe this isn't the correct word to say, and then the rhythm you were trying to set up just falters and it kind of stops. So I'm gonna tell you the same thing that Peter and Frodan told me, which were like, just say the words, just go with it. Just if you mess up, you mess up. The other, like someone said before, someone will correct you if you say a word poorly, or in my case, if you end up speaking Spanish. But yeah, just don't. You can think at the start, when you just start opening your mouth and say, okay, I'm going to talk about this point. And after that, you just try to flow with it. Sometimes you won't get everything that you want to say, but it's better to just make something fluent that just stop yourself in the way and just doubt.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that's it. I wanted to see the game towards the end, man. Peter, it's no fun.
Yeah, what happens?
I agree.
Who
I'm
wins?
surprised you left it going that long, Peter. Like
I was enjoying it too much.
Yeah, thank you for that. It was actually nice. I thought you were gonna end it after the augments, but you left it a little bit longer, so I appreciate that.
All right. So to come to my feedback, because that was really great from Pie Hat as well. That particular last thing. Just to run through. So Fiendfire, I really liked. This applies to both of you, and obviously that you're keeping up with the players' stories and kind of making those stories a bit clearer, generally during this second iteration. Particularly, there were some parts where I liked that you were sort of calling out what the next move should be for a player, or what a player's objective is at this point in the game, because it seems like something that's so simple when it's said out loud, but we don't do it so often. And I think in terms of following the storytelling of the lobby, it's very hard to do without people sort of summing up what each player's story is. So I think it's really, really good. there was some fumbles, particularly early. But rather than trying to be perfect in everything, I think what was important was that you this time recognized that you were in a fumble and got out and got your co-caster to cover you rather than trying to fight your way out through a fumble by just keeping going.
Yeah.
So that was really good. Like, again, it's all about progress. This is going to be a little bit harsher, but I think you should be forbidden from using the word interesting, because I feel like you're really doing yourself a disservice when you say like, oh, this is going to be really interesting later on, because you really robbed yourself of a chance to explain why it's interesting or what it is. It feels like a kind of a filler word in place of analysis. And I try and avoid, anytime you feel like you want to say this is going to be really interesting, just try and cut out the interesting and explain why you're saying that in the first place.
More of the why.
Yeah. Like, it'll be really interesting to see how this develops. Like, it's such a common piece of filler commentary that doesn't mean anything. So if you replace that with literally anything else, it will be better.
Okay.
So you did some really nice point construction as well. When you're talking about this is the consequence of having the prismatics in the lobby, I was like, that's such a good illustration of what we're talking about previously, of leading the point with the why, or like with the hook of what you're saying, and that was great because you set up the point. There's a consequence of having a prismatic lobby, and then talked about it, and then kind of went on to other stuff. And I was like, please do lots of that because it works really well to catch an audience's attention. Where you don't necessarily explain the whole thing, but you give a reason why someone should care. The why isn't necessarily why is this happening, it's why should I give a shit as a viewer.
Right.
Like, you can do a whole point without explaining like the why in the game, but just like, why are you saying this?
Yeah.
And this is another thing which I found be like relatively unique to what you're doing. I love your energy injections into the cast. Like, there were several points in that, particularly towards the end, where you just like made it a joke towards Honeybear and really just brought the energy level of the cast up a lot. And I think that's really, really good, but please keep doing that.
More jokes.
Yeah. I think that style, like, it
Yeah.
reminds me a bit of how Makes does things, where by doing jokes like that, you are setting the tone for the cast in a very kind of light and sort of breezy way, and it works really, really well for you.
Yeah.
Solid.
I think the one-liners you had were great.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have like too many of them, but anytime you did, it was like that brought up the cast significantly. I really enjoyed them.
Yeah. To be clear, me saying otherwise no fun wasn't a ding against you. It was
Oh, no, I
huge positive. Like that made me laugh quite a bit, and I'm very happy my mic was muted.
Protroid, stop insulting me by calling me funny.
Oh no.
How
I think
dare
if
you,
you-
Protroid?
If you're going to have a caster brand, like, definitely keep that as part of it, because I think it's really, really great.
Okay. Solid.
So, Honeybear,
That's me.
It's you. I think the points are much cleaner generally. I liked you were working more, giving the overall lobby picture, bringing in the augment choices and stuff like that. And also other stuff like when we went onto a player's board, reminding us what a player was doing previously, because of course, as viewers, we don't remember anything, so it feels good to have the casters like remind us of something that is important, rather than assuming that we remember it.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
I would like you to include more hooks in what you're saying to kind of direct your co-caster a little bit in terms of where you're going, because I feel like sometimes you were just sort of throwing out information without a clear idea of where the conversation was supposed to be going next.
Yeah, I could see that. I do. I think this might come through, or this might have come through. I do think I struggled with just general high elo patch knowledge. If that made sense. Of when I'm watching, I'm like, okay, I don't know how to push this into a conversation piece, and I was kind of relying on Fiendfire to just be able to pick up from wherever I was able to leave off. I think a lot of my end points were just not sure where to go with this type deal.
That did come across.
Yeah.
In this particular cast, you were definitely in the play-by-play role. So what you should be contributing is, if you can rely on your co-caster, ideally to be able to run with nearly anything that you give them. Like, as long as your points aren't so pointed that they can't go anywhere but specifically where you say. You know, if you ask them a direct question, like, what do you think of this champion's itemization or something, you are forcing them to answer a very specific question. But you can just add in narrative fuel, and if they want to use it, they can. If they don't want to, they don't have to. But ideally, you'll be like, you'll like look at left board here or something, and just be like, just add in something to give them something to leap off of, even if they don't follow it up long term. Like, oh boy, like, what great tank itemization, or like, I'm worried that there's not enough backline itemization, or just something, some kind of opinion, so that your co-caster doesn't have to start from scratch.
Yeah, I definitely struggled with, especially after the first feedback of trying to figure out, it's like, okay, I want to give the why, but giving the why and passing it off, I feel like are two, not separate, but almost separate bits of, like, ways to go about things, if you will. If I say this Vex itemization is great, Morello's is one of the best items in the game, glad he slammed that. I give the why, but I don't give Fiendfire's got nothing to go off of that. So I was definitely struggling in the second half.
He has no mana. He's not going to cast. That's horrible.
Yeah.
No. So Fiendfire's exactly said that. Like, if you had said that, that would have been totally fine. Like, you just gave an opinion. Like, I really like the itemization. Fiendfire could be like, yeah, I mean, maybe I would come in and be a bit more agreeable and be like, yeah, absolutely. There's a ton of damage items, but the big thing that's missing here for left is the casting speed item, and I'm worried that this Vex just isn't going to cast enough times to clear the field. Just something like that.
Something, yeah.
So a good example of this was, you mentioned Seraphine being like your favorite composition, but you did not mention anything about why that was your favorite composition and what it does well, or anything like that. And that would have been such a great
switched boards so fast. I wanted to talk about that so badly. I was so prepared. I had like so many points ready for it, and then the board flipped.
Okay, I don't know. Maybe
it didn't, but I thought that's where my head went with it.
I feel like we were on the Seraphine board at some
Yeah,
point.
I don't. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there was time.
I was like, well, what are we talking about Seraphine for? Seraphine doing good stuff. She's fighting somebody.
Seraphine,
She's not.
Yeah,
doing
that could have
so
been
much.
just to drop the ball on my end.
So just in that case, like, again, it doesn't need to be anything particularly in depth. If you providing why you like Seraphine, it's totally fine. Like, that's something to put into the cast. Like, if you say, oh yeah, she's so good against clumped units, or if she gets time to work with, she can clear out pretty much any board. Like, anything you put in there, it doesn't have to be. Fiendfire doesn't have to like pick up and like use that specifically, but it's just there in case it makes the next point easier.
Gotcha. Appreciate that. That's a great example as well. Thank you.
That's right. Last thing for you is just that I think the overall storytelling we're doing in the game was really good. I was like, listening, I was like, yeah, I'm going to try and do more of what you're doing here, which is to sort of remind the viewers where we are in the game and kind of what's coming up and stuff like that. That was really good that you were doing that during the game, sort of providing a little check-in in terms of the game overall. I think that made a huge amount of difference. In a lot of casts are just information. Here's some more information. Here's some other information. Let's go to this person's board, talk about it. Let's go to this person's board, talk about it. And that's the whole cast. And there's never any real effort made to make it a coherent story. But you were doing that in the last cast, and I think that helped a lot.
Definitely, thank you. I'll try and lean into that more.
Very last point is that the overall game, while the part of the game was mentioned, the overall game state was barely mentioned by either of you during it. Like, you had such an easy win with 5x win streak that you can use to illustrate any point you want to make. Like, if you be like, oh man, left's in trouble, and a big part of it's because 5x been winning for like 3 straight stages. or anything like that. Like, just you don't need to make it the focus, but just including information like that tells the overall story of the lobby more clearly. And I think that was a big thing that was missing in there, is that we barely had mentioned, like, if we went to someone's board, we mentioned the player, but in terms of how people were moving around, like, this person was win streaking early, now they've not anymore, that kind of stuff just wasn't really there.
Guys, excuse me, did you ever see a Jin 4 on the board?
Oh,
No.
yes, I got beaten by it yesterday. It was great.
Oh, really?
It's
Yeah, I
terrifying.
mean, like, okay, so I'm playing a game right now with a friend because he needs to go to sleep real soon. That's why I'm playing while we're sitting here. But if you want to take a look at that, you can just see this is harassment.
Okay, I just want to.
I'm sorry.
I'll leave people to that in a second. I just want to wrap things up here, though. So before we close, from Fiendfire and from Honey Bear, could you kind of, from each of you, let's start with you, Fiendfire, just kind of give your reflections, stuff you might want to take forward.
Yeah, I think a lot of like awesome feedback in being more confident in points being made, not being afraid to be like wrong, because obviously even if you're wrong, that creates conversation with your co-caster. So, and then also being more cognizant of just where you are in the game and what's coming up next, so that you can be more succinct and prepared for what's going to come, be it an item on carousel, be it an augment selection, and that sort of thing.
Cool.
And then
I would add on to that you didn't mention that I think your sense of humor is going to serve you extremely well, and I think you should be making that a significant part of all the casts you do.
right, more of that. That's right.
Honey Bear, how about you?
Be more precise about what I'm saying, and make sure I hit my storylines, or at least make sure I hit the storylines that are necessary. Maybe cut out the storylines that are the topics of conversation that aren't as necessary. To make sure we hit everything that's needed to be hit in a timely manner.
I believe that what the NA casters were saying, like back when TFT first started NA, was 2.5 players was like they thought was like the trackable amount of information. I think it's a relatively decent idea of. I think you can group players to extend that idea, but I think two major storylines, one minor storyline is probably reasonable in terms of the amount of information the audience can really keep track of.
Say too, worried about there's more stuff to talk about. You have producers often helping you. At least at Aegis, we try to make sure that we're giving you more information about that. Also, doesn't hurt to just keep a little notepad here or there if you want to remember something specific.
Definitely.
Alright, cool.
Sense.
I guess that'll bring us to an end then. Any final thoughts from anybody before we close out today?
This is a lot of fun. I'd love to be back for more of these.
Yes, I loved
Sorry
it a
that it came
lot.
at the
Like
end.
also.
Yes, more of this, please.
Yes, more of this.
I agree more.
It's just like it's so nice, like for people like me or Quinn, having like not much of an experience about casting, and then just like meeting people like you, Counter, or Z-Boy or Honey Bear, just doing so great, as well as Fiend and the others. Like listening to that and also like reflecting together and talking about that does help a lot. Also with like confidence and shit like that.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Like
Like,
my
even
first
as someone
cast
that
is
was-
tomorrow, so like this is very
Oh
helpful.
wow.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Good luck.
You're
You're gonna
ready
crush
for
it.
Good luck.
Yeah, like this helps people that are obviously already like doing like obviously I know that Counterfeit probably has said this many times with doing these. For people that have casted before and are obviously we're always trying to like help everybody else get better because that's the only way that our space gets more knowledge and gets
right.
better as well. Is this helps us. Like this helps us tremendously because we start to like then look back at our own cast, right? And it's not like we always have time to go back and rewatch our VODs, but hearing how other people are trying to get into the space and just remembering where you came from, it's just very humbling.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's also really interesting from a newbie's perspective because I was listening to Honey Bear casting, and like I really couldn't really find that much stuff that I would even give feedback on. I thought he did really, really well. And then you guys come in and like point out all these things that could be improved there, and like those are really good points. So it's also like really valuable to see like if somebody's really good, how to get even better.
Yeah.
So that's some really valuable
Appreciate
insight.
that. I think Frodan actually does a really good job of that. I think Frodan's one of the best casters TFT has. And
Frodan?
he gets a lot of has gotten a lot of solid feedback of like sometimes it's been harsh from what he said anyways. And it's like that's been so helpful to him, even though I personally think he's just one of the best we have. So it's been pretty cool to like watch a guy like that be like, oh, even the greats get roasted. Not roasted, but yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'll apologize quickly for coming in late. I love
How dare
participating
you.
in these things for a lot of, oh, you shut up. I love participating in these things because I love the community, as I just demonstrated with Z-Boy right there.
That loves me so much.
Indeed. Like, there's so much that goes into building a healthy culture around a game, like both at a player level, but also at our level here for commentators. And as some of you are kind of getting at, there aren't that many outlets to be able to talk about and think through this kind of stuff. Just because, you can't exactly go to the supermarket and say, oh, I'm a commentator, when it's like, okay, yeah, me too, let's talk about that. Like, it's a bit of a rarer thing to go through. And it's very nice to have these outlets where Counterfeit and I, we've been able to talk about dumb, weird stuff, I guess, and also figuring things out for the better part of, I guess, 3 or so years of TFT, but also longer in general, but less friendly until we started getting into TFT together. Like, just having this space is a very good thing, and I'm happy that we can share it to, grow up our scene even better than it is presently.
All right. Well, I
Yeah.
guess that's a good place to end it. We'll post up when we get enough time to have another one of these. It seems like enough people were able to make it along at this time and place, so you might well try and do that again to avoid running into too much of a clash with weekend events.
Yeah, I think that's smart.
Cool. Thank you all for coming. There definitely
thanks for
will be
hosting.
more of these in the
Thank
future.
you for hosting.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
It was fun.
Thanks a lot.
Honestly, anytime I can show up to hear you say Zed Boy, I mean, I'm here.
Zed Boy.
Just let me know, bro. I'm here for it. Like, I have the European lady as my stream announcer for a reason, so that I can hear her say Zed Boy over and over again. But your voice, way better. I'm gonna record it just like.
Counterfeit, this is the way to make
it's
some easy
happening.
money. Tell them your BO rates.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've
got my rate
So,
sheet.
I gotta go.
Fun fact, being
Alright.
Canadian, we grew up with like the proper way to say Z, but I always just say Z, and like many other people I know always just say Z, but like we technically
Outrageous.
grew up learning Z.
Oh,
Just
I'm
funny.
an uncultured American swine, so yeah.
I'm gonna end the
Yeah.
recording since I don't think there's that much useful being said at this point.
Very